All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to talk about the session player Collab. So as of recently, I've started this thing where I was wanting to get people together. We do it here all the time on the channel, getting people together to collaborate musically. I've even started what's called the HSS session players, which is a list that you're more than welcome to sign up for. The link is in the description of the video. This will allow you to get on a list of individuals who will sort of be like on call. And these are individuals that if I'm working on a personal project, a project for other individuals, then I can call on these people and say, hey, I need a bass player, I need a drummer, I need a glockenspiel player, I need someone to do something on this project. Would you be willing to do so? And hey, Randall, good to see you, buddy. And by being on the list, it does not like guarantee you work, but at least it has the opportunity is there. And by creating this list as well, I'm also creating this list for other individuals who are in the Collab group. That way, if you guys want to work on something together and you already have this list, you already know what one another plays, then you can reach out to one another, and that's another way to seamlessly integrate collaboration amongst the community that we are creating here. So today we're going to be talking about a project that we're working on for an individual whose name is Kayla Patrick. Her father submitted a song for the HSS Song Contest not too long ago. And during the HSS Song Contest, this is the song that we're going to be working on today. Mark, good to see you, buddy. Her father submitted a song called Found, and as many of you know, I reached out to her father and I said, where did this song come from? I love the song so much. I want to actually get in my hands on this and work with it. It could be so much more. And so lovingly, he reached back out to me and he said, hey, it's actually my daughter. Proud father moment there. And Tom, what's up, buddy? And so he said, I'm going to kick you over her way. So I got in touch with her. She, yet again, lovingly said, yes, I would love for you to take the song. Here's the tracks. Do with them what you will. And she's even allowed us to be able to use these tracks for individuals to put on their portfolio. Now, how do you get access to these tracks? Well, there's a couple of different ways. Excuse me. The first way being, and I've going to keep pushing this here lately because we're so close to getting to some goals that we need to meet. But if you become a $5 a month Patreon member or more, you will get access not only to these multi-tracks, but to a slew of other multi-tracks and every one of the courses, the tutorial courses that I own. You're also going to get access to a Sonar Pro Start template. You're going to get access to desk plans. There's all kinds of stuff if you become a Patreon member that you get access to. And then obviously too, there's Patreon only sort of content that's created there around the Patreon account. So $5 or more a month, that's less than what you pay for a cup of coffee at Starbucks. And well, depending on what kind you get, but that's a month. That's not a week. That's just a month. And if we can get up to a certain threshold, we're going to have monthly giveaways just for Patreon members. So it's going to be a great community. Within that community though, you're going to have access to these later. And if you get in on the community as well, Tim, good to see you, buddy. If you get in on the community as well now, when the Ultimate Cakewalk by BandLab tutorial course goes live on Warren Hewitt's website, which I'm creating this, if you did not know, I'm creating it's called the Ultimate Cakewalk by BandLab tutorial course. It's going to be the most in-depth cakewalk tutorial course on the market. You're going to have access to these multi-tracks to mix along with me, to master them with me, to get them radio ready, and then you can actually put them on your portfolio. But by being a member of the Patreon community, you're going to get a huge discount on that whenever it does come out. So all that being said, I want to give a big shout out to some individuals who have helped the channel up into this point, and you all know who I'm talking about. These are individuals who have in some way, shape, or form taken this channel to the next level through their generosity, whether it's the super chat donations that they've given here on the left side of their name, or it's the generosity that they have given in the Patreon monthly membership that is on the right side of these names over here on the left-hand side. So thank you, each and every one of you, for your patronage. Thank you for your super chat donations. It's what keeps the channel alive, what keeps it going. Thank you so much. And for those of you who may be stopping in, that this is your first time ever being here, you're kind of wondering, what is all this about? What's going on? Well, just in brief, I want to let you know that this channel exists to simplify the complexities of the home studio, and we're here to help you make professional sounding music in a less than professional space. Now, the motto that goes on around here is that we can dream alone and we can create alone, but together we can achieve so much more. And today we're going to show what that togetherness has achieved on the song that was submitted during an HSS song contest, and a song that I very well could have just taken the tracks that were handed to me and done what I wanted with them and made the song great in its own right. However, when you start to collaborate with people, when you start to get other individuals involved, that's when things really take on a whole new light. And so I reached out to the community that was already established here, and I asked who all would be willing to help out on a project. So there were several individuals that jumped out, and it was sort of a first come, first serve kind of thing. So the individuals who went out on that limb are going to be actually showcased on this project now, that's going to be showcased in the tutorial, that's going to be showcased on Warren Hubert's site. So it's always a good idea to jump on things as soon as you can. Bops Studios, nice to see you, man. So the individuals who decided that they would take on this project with me have shaped this project into something huge, something that I never thought it could have been and would not have ever been by myself. And that's what I'm getting at. That's the whole point of this community aspect. That's the whole point of everything that we're doing around here on the channel, is to show you guys that whenever you begin to create with other people, whenever you begin to create and keep creating, cool stuff really happens. And so in the project that we're talking about today, one of the individuals that leapt out and said, hey man, I would like to help, is actually an individual that I work with. His name is Jason Reeves. He was a session guitarist for Nashville. He played in the House of Blues. He was the house band actually for the House of Blues in Tennessee, and he did a lot of guitar work there. He's an excellent guitarist. He's just an all-around great guy. Unfortunately, he will not be able to join us today, as he does have some family stuff that's going on right now, and he's sort of taking a break from music. But I still want to give him accolades and honor where honor is due. He did the slide guitar on this track, so unfortunately he can't be here to explain to you exactly what he did or how he did it. I can tell you that basically his setup was very simple, but he took a simple setup like most of us use and turned it into something really cool. So you're going to get to hear that here in just a little bit. The other individual that jumped out was Marcel Walden, who did a lot on this project. He recorded everything under the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink. And then we had Brian Barton, who jumped on for the bass guitar, and Chris Knowles, who jumped on for the drums. Now, each one of these individuals have added their own unique flair to it, and we're going to talk about that now with them together so they can explain to you exactly how they have done what they've done. So let's go ahead and introduce these awesome individuals. And without further ado, I bring to you the one, the only, the Collab group here. And here they are. Okay. So we're going to start with Marcel. Go ahead and introduce yourself and what your take on this project was.
Well, I'm Marcel. I'm from Austria, a musician, producer as well. And I did some mandolin, some guitar stuff, and a bit of percussion on this project, and keyboards.
Nice, nice. So what was your, when you first hopped on to the whole project itself, did it seem like something that resonated with you well, or was it just, were you kind of like, I don't know? Because it seems like to me like you had no problem whatsoever feeling at home and very comfortable with it, in the sense that, I mean, you knocked it out of the park. So, but the project itself, was it something that seemed daunting, or was this welcoming? How did you see it at first?
It was a very difficult song, I think, because it was in the original part, as you sent it to us, it was a bit monotonous, and I thought it should get some more arrangement, so it builds up till the end, and so I had pretty many ideas which I could add, and I started adding, and I hope it went out well for everyone.
Well, I have to personally, on my end, personally, I have to say that whenever I got your tracks back and flew them into the project, I was blown away. For one, there was a lot of things that you implemented that I had not even thought about, which lets me know just the musicality that you have under your belt. How old are you, by any chance?
I'm 18, turning 19 in a month.
Wow. So 18, 19-year-old has that much musicality under his belt, can obviously pick up any instrument pretty much and pluck around on it and play it. That's awesome. Just kudos to you, man, because when I flew the tracks in and started hearing sort of your take on it, where you were going with it, that inspired me to actually mix it differently too, and to arrange it differently. So thank you so much, Marcel, for jumping on today. And we're going to get a little bit more into how you recorded those things in just a moment. But next, I'd like to introduce Chris Knowles, who was the drummer on this.
Thanks, man. Hey, everybody. So just a little bit about myself. I've been playing drums since before Marcel was even existent in history. No, I've been playing drums for a very long time. Been in and out of it, just due to life circumstances. But also been messing around with home recording for a long time. And I started following Robert here. It's been a few months back. I stumbled across the channel because I've being a Cakewalk user since Sonar 1.0. It was hard to find good content. But then out of nowhere, guys like you and Mike and Joe just kind of exploded, at least in my view, where I could see you guys, and began to follow you and hooked up on this HSS collab thing. And I had never really, I've played with a lot of people. I played with a lot of bands, played in a lot of different types of settings, played a lot of church stuff, played a lot of different styles, trained, through junior high into high school, as well as a little bit of college. And so, it was funny. When I heard this song, her voice reminds me of Edie Brickell from Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians. And so I heard, just this whole thing about, kind of that 90s pop folk kind of sound. And, so it took me a couple of times. I kind of contrary to what Marcel heard, I heard that deeper kind of folk vibe that you were digging for. And you and I exchanged some emails on it as well, Robert. But that's what I heard. And then I also kind of heard that new country folk sound in it, that it's a bit richer, which is where we've kind of gone with it, a lot of layers and stuff like that. But I know we'll get into more on how we did what we did, but that's kind of what I heard and where I went with it. And, just kind of brought my experience out. When I hear something, I won't sit down and write out a part. I'll sit down and just start playing to it. So my little Yamaha kid over here, I sat down and kind of banged out a part, and then went and recorded a couple of stabs at it. And then, as you learned, I had not collaborated digitally well before. So the first set of tracks I sent you were just, I think the word you used was unusable. But it was an experience, but we worked it out real quickly, and I put my digital brain, I put my left brain back to work and kind of pushed my right brain out of the way for a minute and got everything resituated. That's a whole nother story, but I'll stop talking there because I can talk forever.
Well, thank you so much for one, not just for jumping on to Collab, but for two, I don't remember using the word unusable, but I do remember letting you know that I was unable to, maybe I did use the word unusable. So basically, just to kind of give you guys a back history on what happened, the song was recorded and it was sent out through the stems on 24-bit 44.1. And if you haven't collaborated over the course of many years, this is very typical for it to happen. You have to have on your end, like whenever you fly it into your DAW, you have to make sure that whatever you're recording and you're sending out to go back into the collaboration is on the same sample rates and bit rates. Otherwise, it can cause some timing issues. So when he sent them in, I didn't even think to even look at that. I just flew them into the project, and I'm like, man, the timing is like way off. And then I was like, okay, hold on. He's a better drummer than that, so I know that's not the case. Let me go in here, and I did some more deep diving and realized, oh, he recorded these, I think it was like 48K. And so I had to send those back and say, hey, you mind redoing these? To which case he was like, I'm sorry, no problem. But I want to say this at this moment, because a lot of people that I've worked with in the past, whenever you tell them, like, basically you've given me tracks that I can't use, they get pretty tiffed about it. They get to the point where they're like, well, I spent all that time and all that energy. And in the long run, Chris's sort of perspective on this was he was more willing to serve the song than to serve himself. And so he just humbly said, hey, man, I appreciate it. It's my bad. I'm going to go back and re-record these. Then he delivers the next set of drums, which actually sounded, in my opinion, even better. I think they were more locked in. And he delivers them in the right formats and everything flies in perfectly. But the fact that whenever you're collaborating, that on my end, that sort of as the MC, the master of ceremonies of this thing, that I was able to say, hey, Chris, sorry, man, this isn't going to work. And in the back of your mind, when you have to do this, as the individual who is kind of like the leading of the project, you're always like, am I still going to have a drummer when this is over? So by him saying, hey, no problem, that was a huge breath of fresh air. I was like, awesome. He's seeing this from the good perspective. So thank you so much for that. The next individual who really contributed to this, because you've heard me say it here on the channel time and time again, I can play bass. I've got one hanging on the wall, but that does not make me a bass player. To be a bass player, you have to have an ear and a groove that only bass players have. And I can play a bass line, don't get me wrong, but it sounds a lot like an angry guitarist trying to squeeze a guitar solo in there. And at times it's worked on my own songs. I've kind of made it work. But I know the value that is intrinsically found within a real bass player. And Brian has actually worked with me before on something else. So I immediately, whenever he was like, yeah, I'd like to do this, was like, sweet. So the next individual that I want to introduce to you is Brian Barton. So go ahead and introduce yourself, buddy.
All right. Oh, hey guys, I'm Brian Barton, and I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I've been playing bass, as painfully as it is for me to say, for over 35 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been playing a long time. Lots of different bands, rock bands, country bands, blues, whatever. Recording has been a passion of mine almost the whole time. Started with a little Tascam Porta cassette, moved into a bigger one, moved into an Atari ST, moved into a PC, and now I'm running PC and Mac. Do recording, do live playing, yeah. And when I heard this project, Robert had approached me because, like he said, I worked with him before. I was like, yeah, sure. I didn't hear it. I just took him on his word. I was like, yeah, he wouldn't give me a bad one. And I listened to it, and I heard the female vocal on it, and I was blown away. She was so good, and I could really hear like how good her pitch was, and I could, she has great mic technique. Everything sounded great about the vocal, and she's an artist with a soul. Like I could really hear she wasn't just somebody singing a song and just kind of moving on to the next one. You could really hear it in that song. And I played it for my wife, and she was like, oh, wow, this is great. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Like, I can't believe I get to play on this. This is going to be amazing. And I listened to it, and I'm like, I can really do something good with this one.
And you did. You really did. In fact, one of the things that I have to say about each individual that worked on this, and I mean everybody that worked on this, has the same mindset. Maybe it's just because being a musician and knowing that your project is going to be heard by a bunch of different people, maybe that's part of it. But I think honestly, it's just your all's personalities, is that every single person who's worked on this has been a perfectionist about everything that they have done. I've gotten more private messages about, hey, was that okay, or was this, and well, you want me to redo this part, or how about this, and which is awesome. Like you don't run into that kind of just generosity and people who are willing to give of their time, who are willing to give of their talents. You don't run into that every day. And so I'm so happy with the way that the project has turned out. And like I said, we're going to get into just in a little bit, we're going to let you guys actually hear it. We're going to let you we're going to showcase their work. And now this is not completely at its fully mixed state. It's still at a rough mix, but it's at a really good rough mix. I mean, I've really only got but just a few more things to do as far as arrangement and automation and just a few more things. But you guys are going to really love it. I've kind of teased it every once in a while here on the channel just to kind of build some interest and because I'm excited about it myself. But whenever we get actually deep diving into it, then I'm going to you're going to get to see just where all of this has came. So the next thing I want to get into though is, so Marcel, you have done like acoustic guitars, mandolin. You've got some clean guitars, like obviously electric, leads and stuff like that. You even sent me it looked like some delay prints, which was really cool. I was not expecting that either, which is really cool. Those are awesome too, which by the way, for those of you who are collaborating with other individuals, if you can send sort of like a dryer signal and then send the delay, in this instance, send like the wet signal so that the individual who's mixing can blend that in. That's very, very good idea. The other thing that I have to commend you on, Marcel, is not only did all of the tracks come in the right format, but they also just came in the sense of, like I said, it looks like you actually did some cleanup on your end. Like there wasn't any abrupt like stops or clicks or pops. If they were there before, they're not there now, at least. You also implemented some tambourine, glockenspiel, some Wurlitzer, the Hammond B3. I mean, we could probably spend all day here on just what you recorded, but but with that said, let's start with, because I'm a guitarist, I'm going to go straight here. You all knew it. How did you get the clean guitar sound for this particular project?
The clean guitar sound of the electric guitar, you mean?
Yes.
Well, this guitar track was really just going to the clean channel of my amp because I did the overdriven guitar first, and I thought some of the chord sound is missing, and so I just changed over to the clean channel of the amp and recorded some rakes.
Nice. So was that going DI into an interface from the clean channel, or was that actually mic'd up?
It was a mic'd amplifier.
Awesome. It's honestly, it's what it sounded like to my ears, but I didn't know if maybe you used like an amp simulation or something like that. So what microphone were you using on the cabinet?
Just an SM57.
Imagine that. SM57, classic. Awesome.
Yes,
so
of course.
Your delay sound, was that a pedal or was that a plug-in?
I did it in Logic with the Logic delay.
Nice. Okay.
I think it was 8 notes, so
yeah.
I wanted to give you my delay sound as I thought it would be add to the sound to let you see what sound I got on my end, and you can keep it or do your own delays.
Awesome. And see, and that's the other thing I'd like to bring up right here, because every individual who's involved too had submitted more than one. You know, it wasn't like, hey, here's my drum track, take it, leave it, here we go. Every individual had submitted like several different takes to say, okay, here's sort of a more upbeat, here's more of a laid back, here's more of a, and every one of them too said, take it or leave it, put it in, put it out, whatever. So every individual that's been involved, this goes back to the same thing, has been here to serve the song. You just don't find individuals like that very often nowadays, because everybody, like, especially if there were any vocals that were recorded with this, like if I had a outside vocalist that wanted to do background vocals or something, with vocalists, you always got to worry about that. I want to be up front and up center, and you better be able to hear me. And sometimes it's like background vocals aren't always there to be heard, but you can't explain that to them because they're not willing to serve the song. They want to serve themselves. So at any rate, speaking of backing vocals, you actually added some backing vocals in this song at a point when I was like, when I flew them all in and listened to it, it hit me, and I was just like, where did that come from? But it's awesome. Obviously that
Don't
was...
solo them. Don't ever solo my terrible singing.
No, it was great. But that's the point is, it was an extra layer. And what kind of microphone did you use for that?
As an Origin. It's my main vocal mic, although it is a bit bright.
Yeah. That microphone, though, I have heard a lot of good about. In fact, Ed Thorne, who runs the Ed Thorne YouTube channel, that's one of his like go-to mics is the Austin Origin. So, and I think the most recent video that Kayla just released of one of her songs, she was singing through the Austin Origin. So, it's definitely got a lot of good reviews. So, you also included some acoustic guitar picking for that, and yet again, very nicely, he sent the first track and the guitars were a bit out of tune. And I said, hey, if you don't mind re-recording, and he gladly went back and did it. So yet again, serving the song. What acoustic guitar did you use on that, and how did you record that?
I have an 4-straight nut guitar, which is a pretty good sounding guitar. If I can only say the best of folk guitars, they're sounding really awesome. And I recorded it with a lewd LCD 140 Air mic.
Nice.
I like small diaphragm mics on an acoustic. They have this brittle, percussive sound.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was recorded very well. I know I had to do just a little bit of EQ cleanup. There was not like major EQ curves going on to try to make it blend in. And the good thing about it was, because there was already acoustic guitar that was intrinsically given to me with the track that I wanted to maintain because it was the artist's. Yeah. At the same time, like your work that you added to it did not detract from that. It only added to it. It was really great addition.
I tried not to do too much of acoustic guitar, as you said, because there was already the artist's acoustic. So I only heard this little part in the end and just recorded it, leave it, or take it.
Awesome. Now there's also some lead guitar that's electric, and that sounds really nice. I wanted to know how did you record that?
The same way as the clean and overdriven guitar, just the SM57 on the amp, and set up a decent tone, and just record it away as good as possible.
Awesome. Okay, and so I know you're a big fan of the tambourine.
Yes, I am.
So what microphone are you using on the tambourine?
The LCD 140 again.
Okay.
The same mic,
cool.
But without the air modus in XY configuration.
Nice. Okay, because I was wondering, I was like, how did he get a stereo tambourine track? Did he set up two mics, or did he?
I also like it in AB as like overheads. It sounds good too, but in this case, I recorded it XY.
Wow. Very good. Very good. The glockenspiel, yet again, another instrument that whenever it came in, I was like, where did this come from? It came out of left field. And I'm like, but at the same time, like, even though I wasn't even picturing that anywhere close to this, which I know Chris said he might have actually already kind of cued into that, being a percussionist, but I was not even thinking that at all. And when it came in, at the time that it came in, I was like, that's genius. Just the way that it just like...
Thank you.
It's during a point in the song, which you all will see here in just a moment, where it builds up to this crescendo, and then there's a break, which I love doing that in music, where just everything just kind of drops out. And then you hear this beautiful belly chimey. It sets the mood for the rest of the outro of the song. So how did you go about recording a glockenspiel? I've never recorded one.
Well, it is MIDI. It is a MIDI instrument.
Is it? Okay.
So,
man, that sounds really good. So, yeah. Okay. No, it literally sounds like legit mic'd up. I was like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's from the Spitfire.
That explains
BBC
it.
Symphony Orchestra.
That explains it. So for those of you who have ever used any kind of loop or sample libraries, the Spitfire libraries are amazing. They were meticulously recorded at Spitfire Studios. So whenever you're using their MIDI instruments, you're not just using an off-the-shelf, like some digital reproduction. You're actually using a real recorded instrument, but you're just using a sample of it. So that explains why it sounded so good. Okay.
I always like doing some kind of orchestral percussion in bridges because it sets some kind of different vibe to the rest of the song.
That's a really good point right there, actually. And it really did. It just made the break of this just completely, yeah. Everything you just said there was spot on. So the next one I want to talk about is the Wurlitzer. Was that a digital instrument as well, or BSTI?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Sounds really good. Sounds really good. And then the Hammond B3.
Also a MIDI instrument.
Okay, I was going to say I didn't think you had room there where you're at for a Hammond.
Definitely not.
My pastor's wife, she plays an organ, and before our church burned down, she had an original Hammond B3, which unfortunately is setting right now in a church that's burned. We're getting ready to rebuild soon, hopefully, but it had the full-blown 2 Leslie cabinets, and it was gorgeous. Wow. And she could make that thing sing. So this was almost brought a tear to my eye whenever I heard this, because I haven't heard her play a real Hammond in so long. She's now on a Yamaha with organ sounds, which is, you know, you got to do with what you got to do with. But so I think that's the main things that I wanted to cover that you have done, and I greatly appreciate you going in depth and telling us how you did that, because a lot of people sometimes, especially when they get really good sounds, they're like, I don't want to tell you how I did that, because that's my sound. So very generous of you to
no problem.
So have you had any kind of musical, like, did you go to music school or anything like that?
Well, I started piano lessons as a child. I did a bit of guitar lessons. I stopped both of them. And then I tried to record. I had a professor of mine who is recording too. He taught me a bit. And then I was teaching myself online, recording and playing other instruments. And I'm trying to play instruments to give some color to songs. I'm not a very technical player on most of the instruments. So I'm trying to do little things to give the song some character.
Well, kudos to you, man, because wow, with you being the age that you are, not having like a master's in music or anything like that, and just having that innate ear for what music should sound like and things that you can add to it, that stuff honestly can't be taught anyway. So you're on the right track, man. I greatly appreciate that. And I can honestly see you going places, man. It's just a matter of time. So the next person I want to get,
Thank you.
You're very welcome. The next person that I want to get on here and sort of pick his brain is Brian. No, I'm just kidding, because Brian's not currently. I'm not seeing Brian, so I'm gonna go ahead and hop on over here to Chris. Chris, let's talk a little bit more about these drums that you delivered. I have a hi-hat, kick, snare, toms, rooms, and overheads. How did you go about recording all this?
Well, you know, it's funny because when I first did it, I recorded it organically. I have an old Yamaha Power V kit, and I for a long time had it here in my studio room, set up as a 6-piece. And I just recently broke it down to a 4-piece, so a 13 and a 16 snare and a kick, over a single overhead and a single room that I use almost as a overhead pair. And I've been playing around with mic setups. I use pretty much right now all CAD mics on my drums, except for the room mics. The room mics are these podcasting mics you can get on Amazon. I've got one high quality mic, if you will. I've got an AKG 3000C that's set up over where you can't see over that way. for primary vocal work. But for the drums, I haven't used it a lot. I've been thinking about changing the setup to a Glenn Johns style setup and going with an overhead that's actually off the ride and off the floor tom, just facing into the drums, and then another overhead positioned equidistant still to the snare, but then coming over from the hats like that. So thought about that, but I didn't get there. Anyway, the first what I recorded for you, I actually did that organically on the live drums. And we worked back and forth. Remember, we changed the part a couple of times, where we were going to come in and how the fills were going to sound and that kind of stuff. And then once I kind of got it locked into the part, I started listening kind of in depth. You know, when you're first recording it and you're kind of going back and forth, you don't really think about the little details of the mechanics of the sound. And I spent probably the better part of 2 whole days working through my 13 and my 16-inch can to get the heads and the sound of the toms where I really wanted them to be nice and clean, very professional sounding. And they weren't. Old heads, just. So I said, okay, I've got the part. So now I'll and the other thing was, as I said when we were chatting before we started, I was just a hair off of being dead on click. And I can do it. And if I, spend enough time and do enough takes and all of that, yeah, but I wasn't happy with the way the kit sounded anyway. I said, okay, I'm just going to program it. So pulled out Addictive drums. Actually, I started with SI drums and went through that. And I love the SI drums because it has that little buzz roll and it made that alt rock kind of feel really easy. What I discovered when but I didn't like the sound of the kit out of SI drums, and I just didn't like the way it felt. So I switched over to Addictive. And I programmed it completely from hand. I didn't use any loops or, pre-MIDI parts or anything. I did every single part.
Oh man!
As I went along, and you got to. As that's the one thing that makes it sound real. And then, given that I hadn't actually done a lot of those on before, in terms of playing with like the fact that it can generate the room sounds and the overhead sounds. That was kind of a last minute discovery, but that's how I ended up with those specific parts. And then what I did was I just, once I froze them down to audio. And then when I exported them out, I was just able to give you those audios in that way, in the right, at the right settings, right. So that they work. I went back and forth a few times. The part I heard in my head almost from the beginning. The feel with the click in the beginning, where to start was always an interesting part for me. Where we landed with kind of starting in the middle of the first verse, I could do it. It felt a little odd. I kind of liked coming in right at that first pre-chorus instead of coming in the middle of the verse. But I also thought that, might have even sounded cool in the whole verse, right? But the artist didn't feel that. And so, we kind of went an opposite direction with it. But, the thing I struggle with, and even now, I go back and I listen to some of the takes that I did, and even the set with I froze down the tracks, and I'm thinking, I really want to go back and change that. You keep wanting to pick at it, your brain keeps going over it and over and over it. So, I ended up using Addictive drums. I just used the Dry Studio kit. Wetted them up just a little bit and I dropped the overall volume on room and overhead to make them sound a bit more realistic, but I wanted to give you enough to work with in case you wanted to boost it more and get more of a room sound out of it. So that was kind of where I landed.
Awesome. Well, once again, the drums sound really good. They sound amazing. And it's ironic that you said you jumped back over to Addictive drums, because that is my go-to MIDI drum I do like the SI drums, and for those of you that don't know, Cakewalk by BandLab actually comes with a stock drum kit called SI, or Studio Instruments drums, and they sound really good. Don't get me wrong, they have really good sounds. They've got good loops in there that you can use, and it's very user-friendly. But then whenever I discovered Addictive drums, I was like, oh my goodness, this takes it to a whole new level. Not just because of the sounds, but there's also a lot of, you can get in there and tweak every individual kit piece, and you can get in there and, say, for instance, I just showed a client this on a Skype call the other day. He was asking me, some things that he could add to his song, And I was telling him, well, right before you get to the chorus, it'd be really cool to have a reverse cymbal. And he was like, I don't have that sample on hand. And I said, well, let me show you. I pulled up Addictive Drums. I hit the cymbal once. At the very bottom left-hand corner, it gives you a WAV file that you can then drag into your project and reverse. And he was like, oh my goodness, that was so easy. And I was like, yeah, you can sample anything off this drum kit at any time. And so then you can completely change the drum kit, sample every piece of the drum kit, and use that for samples if you want. There's just so many things that you can do with Addictive Drums. It's amazing. But back to this project, what was your initial take on the project itself? Like when you first heard it, was it like, I've got to be involved in this, or was you how did you?
Oh yeah, no, I was right there. Her voice is what hooked me, Now I did put my, as I told you in an email I sent to you, I put my Songland, maybe I watched too much Songland hat on, in terms of like listening to some of the lyrics and how, some of it the story didn't seem to flow as much to me. I get the song and I get what she's singing about. And the way that she did it was beautiful. It just, I was kind of tweaking the lyrics in my mind, not all of them, but just a couple of them. But anyway, that being said, I loved it. I was in, I love that kind of music anyway, and I love playing that kind of groove. I love the little light '90s alt rock, that kind of stuff. Just I love that, and any variation of that's fun to play. The only thing I hated about the Addictive Drums piece was it didn't have the little buzz roll that the SI Drums has on the snare. And I probably could have gone in and actually just layered in the SI Drums part just on that. But like I said, that kind of goes back to the fact that I was nitpicking every little part of what I had done. And at some point you got to kind of try and move forward. So, if we go back and do it again, maybe I'll go back and layer that in. But that being said, it was from the beginning. It was her voice. It was kind of the flow of the song. I love that 90s folk kind of style. Anyway, that's what it was to me. And I was hooked from the moment I heard the original track.
Awesome. So next we're gonna talk to Brian about his bass guitar track here, which really added to the project. As soon as I heard where he was going with this, I was like, oh yeah, that's the sound I was hearing in my head. So Brian, how did you record this bass? What kind of bass did you use? Give us the lowdown here.
Yeah, actually it was a pretty easy setup. I've got an Ernie Ball Stingray 5-string bass that I used, and connected it to my audio interface, which is a Behringer UM404 HD. So it sounds very technical, but it's literally $140. And you could even get a really good one for $100 from Behringer. Some people have different opinions about Behringer. It's inexpensive. It doesn't sound good. I'm like, dude, I sound great on it. I don't know. And so basically I just, it was me, the bass, the cable into the audio interface, and brought all the tracks up in Logic and played in there.
Awesome. Well, it sounds really great. I have to say that. I've got bass guitar tracks before that were almost inusable, where you had to literally go in there and perform all kinds of multi-band compression and just jumping through all kinds of hoops. Literally flew this thing in, did some basic EQ on the bass like we always do, and it just set in the mix. I was like, that's how it should be right there. And so kudos to you for that. And the parts, what was your take on the song itself and how you played your parts? Like, how did the song dictate how you played your parts?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's what I was gonna say. Like when I play along with a song or play to a song, I would like for the bass to stand out, and I'd like to play Geddy Lee or Chris Squire the whole time. But I really listen to the song. Yeah, I really listen to the song and trying to hear like the song overall, like a producer would hear. Like, what should I be doing here? I should be laying out here. All right, let me come in on this part. So like I was really picking it apart as far as like what I could do on there, and I try to keep it bare minimum, but add a little bit of spice every now and then.
Well, you did an excellent job, as we're all gonna hear in just a moment. So as far as the Behringer thing, don't let people shame you over the gear that you're using, because for one, most of the gear that is being used these days is already up to snuff. And the Behringer stuff, what's crazy about the Behringer stuff is the same people that are hating on them are using guitar pedals that were modeled after the Behringer guitar pedals. So it's like you guys are, and a lot of the outboard gear that people are using were modeled after Behringer outboard gear. So it's just one of those things. You're always going to have, I couldn't tell you how many individuals over the course of the years that I've had this channel going that have just hated on me in the comments because I'm trying to tell people that you don't have to have millions of dollars worth of equipment to make good sounding music. And those people have, over the past 2 years especially, have sort of begun to dissipate once they've seen, as they've hung out on the channel long enough to stay in the comments to hate me, once they've seen that all of the stuff that's kind of being produced around here sounds really good, they're like, I don't have anything to say anymore, so I guess I'm gonna troll over here somewhere now. And then what's even better is when I have individuals on here like Warren Hewitt, who was on here just not too long ago, and he's saying the exact same thing that I've been saying now for years. And it's like, now who you guys going to argue with, you know? So it's not your gear that makes you you. Now, granted, there are obviously some microphones, especially, I think is the one area where there is a price point where you cannot go below. And can you use them still? Yes. But, you know, there are some obvious, like, you just have to use your ears, you know? But to me, if it sounds good, who cares if it was $100 or $1,000? 9 times out of 10, a lot of that is just, it's hype. It's kind of like, I've been taking my son fishing a lot here lately, and he's getting all into the lures, the different lures that you can get. And I set him down the other day because he's wanting to spend all of his allowance money on these newfangled lures. And I set him down and I said, son, you gotta take into account that the lures are not even so much about catching fish anymore as they are catching fishermen. And he said, what do you mean? So I let him buy one of his high-end lures that he just had to have, and he caught nothing on it all day long. And we put a worm on a hook, and he caught a fish. So I said, right there, that's the point that I'm proving. So sometimes you just got to go with what you know works. And a worm on a hook works. A Behringer interface is going to work just as much as a $1,000 antelope interface is going to work. It's just, honestly, it's about how you play it, your originality, and your ears. So speaking of ears, let's go ahead and check this song out. For those of you who are in the chat that's been waiting with bated breath, I'm going to play the song all the way through. We're all going to listen to that together, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick out some parts that I really feel like stand out and some things that I think sort of happened from this that honestly I didn't even think was even there, and then it happened. And this is what happens whenever you collaborate. You get other people's takes on things, they put their take on it, and then it takes a whole new light. So let's go ahead and check out the song in and of itself as it stands now. Like I said, this is a rough mix, but it's pretty close to being done. So I'm not going to hurt your ears too bad, but please bear in mind that this is not completely finished. So let's go to the desktop now, and let's check out the song. So what you're seeing on your screen now is the project as it stands. We have a total of 34 tracks. And all right, let's go ahead and give this a listen.
You've got a sacred heart, but you don't know how to use it. Always letting strangers take it and abuse it. And you're so used to getting hurt now, it doesn't faze you. But you get kicked to the dirt, and doesn't it amaze you? The things people do to feel loved. Without someone they don't feel good enough. Don't go searching, you're supposed to be found by the red one. But you just want someone now to pick up the pieces of your heart on the ground. But you'll forget all of them when you're found. swept off of your feet and feel something magical. But you're so used to tragedy, your heart is in tangles. The things people do to feel loved. You're so close to giving up. Don't go searching. You're supposed to be found by the right one, but you just want someone now to pick up the pieces of your heart on the ground. But you'll forget all of them when you're found. When you're found. Don't go searching. Someday you'll be found, and it'll make sense when nobody else worked out. And they'll pick up the pieces of your heart on the ground. But you'll forget all of them when you're found.
Absolutely, positively awesome. And it would not have came to this point if it was not for the wonderful people who were involved. Man alive. So I'm going to pick out some points in this song now, before we start geeking out some more about this, that I really think gave this song a whole new light that it maybe never would have had if it hadn't been for this. For the first thing I want to pick out is Jason Reeves' guitar slide. I did not even think about putting a slide guitar in here. And whenever he sent me back this track and he said, this is kind of my take on it, I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that. So listen to the slide guitar part here. We're going to go ahead and solo it. We're not going to solo everything, but I want you to hear this soloed because it's recorded very well. It's just a really good accentuation to the song, and really helps, especially in that intro, to sort of sell the song right off the bat. Now, as far as what I've done to it, it's really just EQ. I slapped on the CA2A and put it on the limiter. So that way it would just kind of be constant. Whenever I needed it, I could just bring it up in volume. And like I said, because this isn't a completely finished mix, there's been no automation done. When I get to the automation phase, that's what's going to take this song to the next level, really. And then I just got some reverb on that from there. So here's the thing about this too. If you'll notice when you listen to this, it sounds just a little stereo, even though it's a mono track. And the way that I was able to do that is I have it panned. The original signal is panned 53% to the right, and then the reverb that I've sent it to is just dead center. So that gives it just a little bit more width. But that's the first thing that whenever I listened to it, I was like, wow, this is starting to take on a whole new, it just really brought it out. So the next thing that was kind of crazy, because all of us were hearing it before we even mentioned it to Marcel, and then he sends me a track that's got the mandolin in it, because I immediately was like, oh, this needs a mandolin. And the only thing that I've done on this processing wise is a little bit of EQ, and then I implemented the Gullfoss EQ. Absolutely love the Gullfoss. He did double track this and sent me both the left and right channels, which is awesome. And so this is what we have from the mandolin. And yet again, it's not up front, up center, but it really adds to the song. Now it gets a little bit more involved as we get into like the chorus right here. Yet again, just adds so much to the song that without it, it's one of those instruments where you don't really notice it until it's taken out. And then you're like, what happened? The song fell apart. So it's a really great addition to the song. The other thing that I think that really took this to the next level I love this Wurlitzer part right here on the intro. Just that little itty bitty, man. When you hear that in light of the intro of the song, listen to this now in context with the rest of the song. You got your typical intro. Now listen.
You've got a sacred heart.
I just love how that leads into that. And then for the rest of it, we have the Wurlitzer where it's just kind of playing more like a Wurlitzer would. It's adding that sort of an ambience, just an extra layer to the rest of the mix. And then on top of that, he added the Hammond B3. And this is where a lot of the width and the breadth is coming in this song. The girth, if you'd like to call it that, is really coming from these, because these instruments take up pretty much all of the frequency spectrum. It's hard for them not to just, really shine on this. He also added this tambourine. We're going to kind of solo some of these out so you can hear them. Yet again, really helps to make the track. Without the tambourine, it doesn't seem to move like it would. And I just literally just threw that on a reverb and left it. Did a little bit of EQ, I think, just a low pass or high pass filter as usual, and low pass filter, and that's about it. So, but here's some of the stuff I want to point out, that the instrumentation that Marcel did, that something happened that I was not expecting, and that's during this portion right here where things really start to build. And I'm going to try to hone in on it and let you hear it, but so get ready for kind of a loud sound here.
Entangles, the things people do to feel loved. You're so close to giving.
Okay, so it was right there. It's kind of hard to hear, but these guitars right here, check this out. Now, because those guitars are there, they add this extra element, this extra layer right here that sells this part. Listen.
Something magical, but you're so used to tragedy. Your heart is entangled.
Here it comes.
The things people do to feel loved. You're so close to giving up. Don't go searching.
Awesome.
You're supposed to be.
Okay, now I love when songs have a breakdown. So where everything just kind of cuts out. And during this portion of this where it cuts out, I was not expecting to hear a glockenspiel, but whenever it comes in, it's like perfect timing. Sounds amazing. Let's hear that breakdown once again, and listen now for the glockenspiel.
Don't go searching. Someday you'll be found, and it'll make sense when nobody else worked out, and they'll pick up the pieces of your heart. When you're found.
Very cool. Very cool. So I'm going to put this in dim solo mode so that as we move forward, I won't be soloing just the track itself, but you'll kind of get to hear it in context with the mix, but it'll be a little bit louder because everything else will be pulled back a little. So we have that. And then right here, we have this high line that he added. Now, whenever he named it high line, I wasn't necessarily sure what it was until I actually soloed it out and listened to it. But yet again, another thing that just added to this and made it really what it is. So let's listen to this.
It is entangles, the things people do to feel loved. You're so close to giving. You're supposed
yet again. Very cool. Very cool. So I'm going to go ahead and move on now. That's the main things that I wanted to cover, that some things that kind of jumped out at me that this project would not have taken on the kind of width and breadth that it's taken on without that. The next thing I want to cover, though, is this bass guitar. I'm going to go ahead and solo this bass out. I want you to hear this bass tone by itself. Let me take off dim solo. Check this out. That sounds nice. The tone on that thing. So, and literally most of the processing that was done on this is just my typical, I place a limiter on bass. I did some max bass mono just to make it to where it would kind of poke through on smaller speakers. And I added some saturation, love saturation. And then I flipped the phase on it just to make sure that other bass heavy instruments weren't interfering with it. And then obviously there's some EQ that's done on it. But as you can see, even on the EQ channel, it's nothing major. It's literally just a little bit of low pass, a little bit of high pass, nothing major at all. So the bass track literally just pretty much bloop, drop it in and it's good to go. The parts that I loved were the slides. I love the slides that he put in here. Let me get to one here. Yep, there's one. And at the point where they're done at is very tasteful. Check this out. See how it just slid into that break? Love that. They're going to hear a slide back into. Nice. Very well played. Definitely serves the song. Very well played. Yeah, can't say enough about the bass track. Next, we're going to go ahead and sort of solo out these drums so that you guys can hear these, because these drums sound absolutely amazing in my opinion. So let's go ahead and solo that out. Now, there are some things that I did to these drums, at least on my end, that Chris had not originally sent me, and that's with this track here only. So this is what he had originally sent, which sounds absolutely amazing. So the only thing that I did with this is I took the kick drum itself and I made a copy of the kick drum track, and then I actually ran that through Cakewalk's drum replacer, and I actually just threw basically another sample on top of that kick to kind of give it a little bit more beef, and this is what that will sound like. I'm going to go ahead and add it in now. Just kind of give it a little bit more oomph. That right there was a perfect example of that oomph. The boom, boom, boom. So by itself, we'll just solo just these out. Hold on. Okay, so this is the kick just by itself. And this is with the drum replacer added in. It's not doing too terribly much. It's just adding a little bit more girth to it. And a little bit more of the beater head too. I wanted to do that to basically help accentuate the kick in the rest of the mix without having to do any like crazy like sidechain compression type stuff. All right, and then when you put it in with the mix,
Get and abuse it, and you're so used to getting hurt now it doesn't faze you, but you get kicked to the dirt, and doesn't it amaze you, the things people do to feel loved without someone.
Awesome. Very well done. Kudos to you guys, man. Every one of you seriously knocked it out of the park. The song has taken on a completely new light that I never thought it would ever take on. Whenever it was sent to me, much like Marcel has said, it was kind of monotonous. It was a song, don't get me wrong. And I think that's what gave it to that kind of folk sound. What we all heard was because it was so sparsely populated. It was just like, this is so folk that it's not doing the song justice, I don't think. So I've had some individuals here in the chat that have asked, I know Mark George said, has the girl that wrote the song heard this yet? If so, she would love to. She has heard it, actually. I sent it over to her not too long ago in sort of the state that it's in now. And the only feedback that she had was that she felt like that all of the instruments came in a little too quickly, that she would like to kind of see them just sort of sporadically come in and help to build the song, which I was grinning on the other side whenever she was saying this, because I was like, I haven't even done the arrangement part of this yet, because that was already my next, which maybe I should have done that before I sent it to her, but that's okay. So yeah, that was my next course of action. And what I'm going to do going forward from this is actually sort of let those instruments have their own place and lead into that build at the end. And then when they all drop, it's going to make more sense. But other than that, she said she loved the direction that it was taken. She loved the sound of it. The song was really taken on a whole new light of its own. So that to me was payment in enough to hear the artist herself say, wow, this sounds really good. So when it all is officially done and released and I get to send her the actual finished track, then I'm going to actually have her on the show. And she's going to get to give her take on it. So this is going to be super cool. And I'm also going to give her an opportunity to plug her work, because she has a multiplicity of albums that she has released that I didn't even know about until I actually went and checked her out. And I realized, wow, she doesn't just do folk music. She has a lot of different styles that she's actually dipped her toes into. But her voice, like everyone here has said, her voice just sells whatever she sings. And that's what really led me to even try to reach out to her. So now that we've kind of dove into all this and you guys have kind of got your hands dirty and helped with the project, and let's talk a little bit about how we actually went about, going back and forth, sending tracks back and forth. Not too long ago on a podcast I just released that was called Online Collaboration, something like that. It was like episode number, who knows, I'm up to 54 now. So it was one of them episodes here recently. I talked about different things that we're using for online collaboration. And one of the things that I just recently stumbled upon that we've been using pretty much exclusively is an app called Flock. This is super cool. For those of you who have never heard of it, it's literally an app that allows you to just collaborate pretty much seamlessly. I mean, what's your guys' take on Flock? For me, it's been sort of like a seamless, I've loved it, but what's your guys' take on it?
It's real similar to Microsoft Teams, which I use every day in my work. So yeah, it's not, I like it. Nice and easy. The only thing I don't like is sometimes somebody will share a file and then the file disappears after a period of time. You can't get back to it, because I'll go scrolling back through a conversation to find one of the mixes that you had put out, that rough mix you had put out. I was going scrolling back through trying to find it. I'm like, where'd it go? It's like not there. The file link is there, but it's not there. No, it's a great tool. And it's nice and clean. It's not a heavy interface. It kind of sits out of the way, and it's real easy to talk to each other. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I really agree with Chris.
Yeah, me too. It reminded me of Teams a lot, and yeah, I'm used to that, and so it was pretty easy to collaborate in there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So for those of you who didn't maybe catch the podcast episode that I put out on this is sort of what it looks like. You're seeing it on the screen now. This is like the back end of what we would see. It's really got this interface. It's almost like a Facebook Messenger to me is how I kind of seen it, to where you have this ability to chat with one another. You can download it on your phone. So I was getting notifications whenever they would flock me, I guess is how you would say that. And then basically we would just talk back and forth.
Whoops.
And yeah, so it's really cool, and you can share files on here. You can do Zoom meetings from here. So for those of you that have maybe never given this a shot, I mean, I'm not an affiliate or nothing. I don't get any kind of a kickback for telling you guys about this. I'm just trying to help you guys out. Like if you have some collaborative projects that you want to work on, it was really seamless to send files back and forth and all of that. So at anywho, that's kind of what it looks like, and that's what we've been using to collaborate back and forth. So if you guys are interested, that's what it looks like. So check it out. It's at flock.com. And if you're like, what the flock is this? Then now you know. So, so definitely beats email, Bops Studios. Yes.
Yeah.
I've done some stuff through email before, and it's, you might as well be sending snail mail, trying to find it, and then it ends up in your spam folder before you know it. And now you're trying to find other stuff. And, much to
I don't know. I think those first couple emails I sent you probably would have looked like spam and Flock. They were rather lengthy.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So, beforehand, we were all kind of nerding out about music in general and this song. And one of the things that we touched on that I would like to sort of touch on again for those who might be here, we were actually talking about the music industry itself and how it's kind of morphed over the last few years. And I had brought up the fact that, you know, we've taken all of this time to get to the point we're at where we have 24-bit audio and 96K sample rates, pristine, clean audio. And now we've taken the step back to, now that we can do that, let's throw it all on a record and degrade it like crazy. And one of the things that we had talked about was the fact that sort of that stepping back and stepping around, and just, so let's sort of riff off that again. So Marcel, you're younger, and you maybe not, you haven't seen sort of some of the stuff that us older individuals have seen. How do you perceive music and the music industry as a whole, being a younger person who's kind of getting your wings and all this stuff? Like, how do you perceive where it's going? Do you think it's going in the wrong direction or the right direction, or what do you feel like?
I feel like it's going in a good direction, because doing all the things digitally, recording sounds digitally, enables you to have a very clean sound. But on the other hand, you can also do, with plugins, emulate all those analog gear. So you have more possibilities with digital audio, and it's cheaper too.
Very good point there.
I've done some research on tapes for some, as I did some work for school about analog and digital multi-track recording technologies. And I added up what a reel of tape would cost for an hour-long album. And it would be 5,000 times more, only the tape, than the space which would occupy a wave file on the computer, which would be, I think, 25 euro cents or something.
Wow, that's really clever insight there. And
while the tape alone costs about 700 euros. Good night. For those European here.
And see, and that's one of the things that we were talking about too. And I know, Chris, you had said at some point in time that you kind of grew up in that scene where it was a lot of stuff was put to tape. And I know, Brian, you've said it at numerous times too, that just everything has changed from what it was. And the thing that I would like to bring out from all this, and then I'll kind of get your guys' take on this too. The thing that I would like to bring out is the thing that sort of was a game changer for me was the instant recallability. Like, when you went into an old analog studio, if you wanted to do overdubs or do a remix, or maybe we need to change a part, they literally had to go back and reset that board as close as they could to what you originally had, which would cost a lot of money, because then they had to move all of their settings from maybe a band that they were already recording. So then that band that came back in that they were already recording, they were kind of getting shafted too, because now their settings were not back exactly where they were. And if you've worked with analog gear at all, you know that you can have it to the same setting one day. If you move it and move it back to the same setting, guess what? It's no longer the same sound. So hi. So yeah. With that being said, does she want to elaborate? Does she want to give her take on the project, Brian?
No, she wants to speak German with Marcel.
Oh, right on. Okay. Well, so with that being said, Chris, what's your take on the whole analog versus digital thing?
It's funny. I got the opportunity twice in my life to work in an old studio. Once when I was in college, a friend of mine was doing a national songwriting contest, and so he actually paid for 3 hours of studio time at some studio down in Marietta. I don't remember the name of it. We were down there, and I won't tell the whole story, but the only time I had ever seen recording to tape in an actual studio. When I got into it, which was a little bit later, I actually got into trying to do it myself. The digital technology was starting. First in OS2, and then of course in Windows. And my first recording device that I bought for myself was a Tascam 4-track to cassette, to do 4-track recording onto cassette, which I loved and played with, and then eventually blessed somebody else with when I moved to true digital and started playing around with that. But I think that, I laugh about this whole move back to audio, vinyl, and tape. It's like, I agree with you. We moved, the whole point of when you first would buy a CD, I don't know if you remember this, if you're old enough to remember this, but when you would first buy a CD, on the back of it were 3 letters. And usually it was AAD, which meant it was recorded analog, it was mixed analog, and it was mastered digital. Right. Which means they took the analog tapes and ran them in and created the master as a digital stereo master. And then that was what was used to produce the CD. And then it became a DD, and then eventually it was all Ds, and then people quit caring how it was recorded, and that went away. But there was there for a purpose. And the reasons were that you wanted to know if you were using, if you bought an album, if you cared about it, if you were an audiophile, maybe using the term loosely, you wanted to know if it was recorded digital versus if it was recorded analog. And if you really got into it and you had the right kind of equipment, you could hear the frequency limitations that the audio, the analog recording and or mixing would bring into that sound, versus the clean, digital element of it. And you could tell the difference between the digital recordings. You could listen to a digital recording and just hear that crispness. If anything, it's probably the clarity that it brought across the spectrum from about 4K on that really made a difference. But you could hear that crispness, and it made a difference. I was not a huge audiophile. I didn't buy, $4,000 needles and all that crazy kind of stuff. And, only got into kind of higher end audio gear as I got a little bit older and actually had a bit of disposable income. But, for me, I think that it's kind of silly. It's like, I love albums. They were fun, more fun when I was a DJ and did a little bit of, mix and scratch and that kind of stuff, as well as, the very early days, when I did radio, it wasn't early days of radio, but when I did radio in college, we had vinyl. It was AOR, and we did, and it was fun. You could do all kinds of crazy stuff, stuff that's actually a little harder to do without some tweaking. Like if you ever play Bruce Springsteen's "I'm on Fire" at 45 RPMs, it sounds like Dolly Parton singing it. You can check me on that, straight up though. Somewhere along the way, I've got one somewhere, but I've got a WAV file of it. But my point is that you could do fun stuff like that. But that was about it. To me, the quality that digital brings, just that precision, the clarity. I don't want to go back. I have no desire to go back to analog tape and vinyl.
That's a really good take on it, man.
I like where it is now. I think it's a fad. I think vinyl's a fad. I think it'll fade out just as quickly as it did with the birth of the CD. And but the streaming world is changing everything, right? So, I think the industry's a little desperate. I think everybody and their brother has a label now. So the concept of a recording label is not what it was. I could go on and on, like I said, but that's, to me, I think that part of what's going on now, Marcel is a great example. And this actually is also in that film I talked to you about, called Recording in Progress. It's this technology, man, I'm so jealous. Dude, if this technology was around when I was your age, man, I don't know that I would ever have I would never have gone on a date. I don't think I would ever have left my house other than to go work to make money to buy more gear.
Right.
Seriously, that's where I would have been, because it is so much fun and so powerful and allows you to develop. I think it's allowing more and more people to develop talent. Now, do we live in that age of, who was the Peter Drucker that said the birth of the internet, raises the bar to mediocrity, really lowers the bar, I think is actually what he said. But the point being that, there's a lot of noise out there, but there's so many young kids like him coming out that are just hugely talented, and they're multi-instrumentalists. I mean, that's the thing I think is coolest to see, and to see them actually, being so open, humble, and just excited to do it and make noise. It's that's the one thing I think that never changes. When you fall in love with the music, it doesn't matter who you're with. You're always going to love the music first.
Right.
And collaborations like this pull that kind of stuff out and pull those kind of people out. And I think that's what I think is coolest about it. So,
Thank you, Chris.
Brian, let's get your take on this, and sort of get a different spin on this. Just before we even get that, though, I want to let you know there's no need to apologize. And the fact is, this is a family channel. If she wanted to come in here and sit down by you, that's completely fine. If she wanted to get on and say something, that's completely fine. No problem with that. It's actually,
She's
it's
an
kind of
instrumentalist. Also, she's a flute player.
awesome.
So
a
if we need a flute,
flautist.
If we need a flute, we got
Marcel
one.
can't do flute,
So, Brian, what's your take on this whole digital analog, this revolution that we're kind of seeing into this digital era? What's your take on it?
I think I'm kind of the oddball on this. Like, I had tons of records when I was younger, and I listened to them so much that they would get scratched and damaged, and I'd make tapes out of them, and you could hear the scratches and damage in the tapes. I'm like, so when CDs came out, I was like, I don't have to listen to that anymore. I could just listen to CDs. And then, now that we have, audio on our phone, I'm like, I don't even need a CD anymore. And vinyl's coming back. And I'm like, why do I want to go back to that? I like to have it. Oh, I want to hear this song right now. Boom. And I got it. The only thing I miss is the album art. But
yes,
other than that, I kind of like the new stuff, and I like how handy it is to, make a song and just put it on my phone right away and listen to it, instead of, having it on a tape and then taking it somewhere to get it mastered and then listen to it. And, oh yeah, that wasn't very good. Let me have to go back and do that over again. It's pretty accessible right now.
And, that brings up another point to this, is that tactile. I think the tactile feel of, opening up a tape or opening up a CD or opening up a vinyl, and while you're listening to that song, being able to actually hold the lyrics in your hand or hold that album artwork and kind of like try to dive into the artist's head. Like, what were they thinking when they made this album cover? And what were they smoking when they made this album cover? And
reading the liner notes.
Yes, the liner notes.
Anybody remember reading the liner notes?
I loved reading like who all recorded. And then actually sometimes it was kind of a letdown. I'd pick up an awesome album that just came out, or a CD, and I'd go back in there and be like, oh man, who played the guitar on this? And I realized like the guitarist from the band didn't even play the guitar, or the lead vocalist didn't even write the lyrics. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is all a farce. And I don't want to look at this anymore, So that tactile feel, though, being able to like look at that stuff. And we were just talking about this before we hopped on. We were geeking out forever. And we were talking about like, and Chris brought up a really good point. Like back then, when you would buy a CD or an album or a tape, you like would sit down, you put it in, and you would kind of like put away all the distractions. This was your favorite artist. You wanted to hear what they did, and you would listen from track 1 all the way to track 12 or 14 or however far it went. And you listened to that whole width and the breadth of the work, and you got to sort of like see the storyline progress. And now, like Brian was saying, I want to hear the song right now. You pull it up, and it's like a piece that you've extracted from a whole album that maybe was trying to tell an entirely different story, but you extract that one piece of the story because you like that song and you're only hearing that one side of the story. Like, for instance, if you did that, I know I'm going on this Rush thing again, but I was born and raised on Rush. If you would have taken the Rush 2112 album and would have extracted just one song from that album, you would have been like, what in the world's going on here? You know, you would have been lost.
Oh man.
But if you would have listened to that,
real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
All right. So so that's great that you say that. So I remember the first time that I had ever heard of Rush. I was 15, and I had met this girl at a skating rink, and so actually went over to a house where she was babysitting, and she introduced me to Rush. Now, the only song she played for me was Trees. Right. That's off of 2112, if I recall it, the Trees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't get it. But then Rush comes out with, and I hadn't heard Spirit of the Radio and realized it was them. And then Rush comes out with Moving Pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got it. Then I went back and I was able to go back and actually listen to 2112 with a different perspective. But I didn't get it right away. Like I didn't. I told you, I loved AOR, but I'd listen to a few seconds of a song. I even did that with an album most of the time, not always, but I'd go through.
You knew which songs resonated and which didn't.
Yeah, I guess. So. But yeah, that was, for me, it was just funny that you said that. I didn't get Rush right away. It took me a little bit of time to really get into them. Same thing with Zeppelin. I didn't get Zeppelin right away either.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard In Through the Outdoor. I remember putting In Through the Outdoor on and letting it play through, and just the sonic explosion that came through that they were able to create as a band with that. And then, of course, that took me back to some of their other stuff with a different perspective. But yeah, it was I didn't get Trees. I didn't get it. I love the Lord of the Rings references, but I just didn't get it, man. I wasn't there in the beginning. Still not one of my favorites, but no demeaning to Rush.
I think this is about to turn into a Rush discussion. but no, not today.
Marcel, let me ask you, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here in just a minute. But thank you guys once again, all of you, for collaborating on the project. And we're definitely going to have some more stuff to do here in the near future. But let me ask you, Marcel, who is the band or bands, like who is inspiring you at this point in time?
Oh, huge question. There are many. I really like Rise Against from a rock perspective, and Billy Talent, but also Elton John.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan, and then there are musicians which aren't as famous, session musicians I think we have talked before about Tim Pierce in the chat.
Yes. Oh, I love Tim Pierce.
Ray Cooper on percussion. He's a genius. And so on and so forth.
So,
man, Davey Johnstone, man, he's a good influence.
Yes. Of course. He is really good.
I was shocked when you mentioned him earlier. I thought that was cool.
So, Brian, who at this point in time, Brian, who's inspiring you?
You know what? I'm not listening to too much new music lately, and I've been hearing just music that comes out and it's kind of repetitious, a little too repetitious for me. I'm trying to think of some new artists that I've been listening to, and I really like the songs, but I can't recall who they are. Like, it just hasn't hit me hard enough to go, oh yeah, this band. But like Muse obviously is very good, and I think they're on another level from most other bands you hear. And actually kind of let's see, I'm not too much on the new music, outside of like a couple songs here and there that are pretty rocking.
Well, that's fine. That's actually, it's funny that you bring that up, because a lot of the new music that comes up, I don't even give it a chance. and maybe I should be, but just to be completely honest, like to your point, almost all of it sounds identical. It's hard to even ascertain who is who anymore. And I don't really listen to a lot of secular music anyway. I'm more of I love instrumentals, believe it or not. I love jazz, and I love Mozart and Beethoven, Bach, a lot of the older stuff as far as that's concerned. And then here recently, I've just been getting so inundated with artists who are not well known. And just, I mean, people that I've been mixing for. Mark George, who's here in the chat, he just recently won the HSS song contest. He's releasing some awesome music, very synth heavy music, but doing a great job with it. Everybody who's been submitting the songs for the HSS song contest, I'm really getting into that music, to be honest. And you guys are inspiring me. And I mean, I know you might be thinking, well, who am I? I'm nobody. But that's actually kind of the point, is I'm trying to get away from, at least in my personal perspective of things, I'm trying to get away from mainstream anything so that I can kind of regain a perspective on my own personal sound, because my music, if you've listened to any of it, does have a very unique sound to it. And so I want to make sure that I keep that. And one of the best ways to do that is not to be so heavily influenced by all the music that's around you that you then integrate all of that. But I mean, which, you know, that's kind of here nor there, because I mean, at the same time, we're all made up of our influences, past and present. But that's sort of my take on it. So Chris, who is it, at least now or in the future or presently or past, that's influencing you the most right now?
Yeah, it's funny. Because I listened to all kinds of music when I was a kid growing up. For example, my mom listened to everything from Tom Jones to Motown to Jesus Christ Superstar. As somebody said, James Taylor in the chat. Mm-hmm. You know, all of that. I grew up, and I tell my kids, I grew up in a time when, you know, music actually evolved and was with a purpose. And I say this almost lamenting it, because, you know, as much as there was a lot of good music out there, the record labels really did they tightly controlled what music was out there. They had a much tighter control than they do today. I like a lot of the different styles. I don't have I'm listening to a lot of Skillet. I like a lot of the harder Christian stuff. And I love Christian music. I really, though, I have to say, and I'm actually going to do this is another one of my podcast topics as I start to kind of do some of this stuff. I actually am going to do a thing on tom-tom worship. I think what Bethel and Gateway and some of those groups did to Christian music was killing it. The tom-tom worship, the tom-tom praise, is, you know, I've never enjoyed that solely. I think there's a place for it, and I've always, you know, as a drummer, I think that's a great groove to use occasionally when it's on every single song you hear. I remember listening to Christian radio back in the 90s and going, man, I wish we'd hear more praise music and worship music on Christian radio instead of just all this pop stuff. And now we're there, and I'm like, man, I really miss the professional sounding Nashville produced pop music that was really good. It all sounds like Hillsong, and not like the old Hillsong, but like Hillsong United, this now Hillsong that, you know. Anyway, so I mean, I'm listening to a lot of different stuff. I listen to a lot of hip hop. I try to stay away from the heavier secular stuff. But I do like some of the new artists. I also like groups like 21 Pilots, I think, or at least innovative, right? It's a new sound. What's that guy's name? The rapper, Post Malone. So he makes some great music. You got to kind of filter the content. I get it, but some of what he's actually producing and he's making is really cool stuff. I think you got to be open to. For me, I like to try and be open to the music, to the groove, to the feel, to the instrumentation, and not let the message of it like really pound me if I can help it. Sometimes you got to go back and listen to some like good old fashioned worship music to kind of get some of that junk out of you. But that being said, there's clever inspiration in some of it too, I think. So I listen to a lot of different stuff. Some new folks are inspiring me. I go back to, you know, how many times can you listen to 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover? I'll go back and listen to that just to hear that groove. You know, I could listen to that song over and over and over again and not feel sorry about it. Oh, I was listening to Beach Boys lately. Beach Boys for the melodies and the harmonies and all of that. 70s, great decade. 60s, great decade for harmonies and music.
I almost ran over Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
What?
True story. I almost ran him over. I was driving in where was I? It was in Sherman Oaks. There's a Tower Records on Ventura Boulevard, and they have like a parking area behind there. And I had done, I'd eaten there or done whatever, and grabbed my car, and I'm driving down the alley on the way to exit, and some guy was just walking along, to my left, and all of a sudden he just decides he's just gonna turn and start walking right in front of me. So I had to slam on the brakes, and he looks up at me and goes, "Oh, my bad," and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Brian Wilson!" I almost killed the Beach. True story.
Wow. That would have been bad.
Wouldn't look good on a resume.
No, definitely not. Wow.
May I add something to what you said before, Robert?
Absolutely.
I think when you're listening to music, as we are as musicians, you have so many different genres that really inspire you and make up your own musical taste. As for me, it is, as I said before, some rock, some pop from Elton John, but also modern pop. James Blunt, for instance, is a huge influence on me. But also, as you said, classical music, Dvorak, or film music, Hans Zimmer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's so many different fields that maybe the very own musical taste cannot really be defined.
It's true. It's very true. And in fact, one of the things that I want to bring up too is, at least for me, the way that I have always been, there's only really one genre of music that I've never really cared for, and that's country. Not like the country that's on the radio today, like the tight jeans country that's got bass drops in it. You're wondering, why is there a bass drop in a country song? Like the old Hank Williams Jr. or Hank Williams Sr.'s kind of stuff. Now that's not too bad. But when I first met my wife, we hopped in the truck. We were heading out on one of our dates, and at that time, you got your little MP3 player. And as we're driving, I noticed this look on her face, just getting more and more kind of like, what is going on here? And finally we stopped at our destination. She said, "I don't know what just happened." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "We have listened to classical music, bluegrass, Southern gospel, black gospel. We've listened to some rap. We've listened to," "Do you have like one?" And I was like, "No, I've never had like one style of music. Like that's all I listen to." But at the time, she was like, "This guy's schizophrenic. What's going on here?" But to that point, that's what's helped to shape me into the artist and to the mix engineer that I am, because I hear things completely differently from different perspectives, and what has helped me, honestly, because I've got an individual right now, I'm still working on some rap tracks that I have no problem mixing because I've got a background in that. It's not one of those things that's completely foreign to me, that whenever I get handed rap tracks, I'm not like, what do I do with this? I'm a white guy from the suburbs. What do I do with this? So, but that has helped to shape me. And one of my favorite, at least right now, my most influential genre of music is black gospel. And I don't know if you guys have ever taken any time to listen to some black gospel. They have the best instrumentalists that I've ever heard in my life. You talk about bass players. Oh my goodness. Keyboardists, organists that will simply tear it up and just look like they're having a good time doing it. Not even looking at the things, and they're just like, good night.
It's all jazz chords, man.
Yeah.
All that black gospel is all jazz chords with
diminished this and add ninth and sustain this and that. And I'm like, good Lord, man. I actually got one of the greatest compliments that I've got in a long time. Last year or the year before, we had an individual that had visited our church, and it was a black couple. And I was so excited because honestly, our church does not, in the area that we live in, we just don't have enough collar, to be honest. I think every church should be a representation of every nationality that's out there. And so as we're sitting there playing, service is over and all that, and they really seem like they got into the service, and this black guy comes up to me afterwards. I think his name was I want to say Trenton, and he said, man, I got to commend you. And I said, you got to commend me? He said, I closed my eyes, he said, in there just for a minute, I heard your guitar playing. And he said, I thought I was in a black church. And I was like, what? Yeah, I'm down with it. All right. So, which my guitar playing, if for any of you who are in the chat who have ever visited the Lighthouse Tabernacle, you know, I'm not your typical lead guitarist at a church. I close my eyes. I don't go follow sheet music. I don't follow anything. I just get into it. And I've had several people that have come up and been like, I don't even know how you do what you do, but I like it. So with that being said, though, that's who is influencing me at the most right now, because I would love to get to that level of where I can just do it and smiling the whole time and just having a good time at doing it. And that's what I see coming out of these collaborations, is individuals who are, the more that you do something, the better you get at it. So the more that we begin to collaborate, the more that we begin to share one another's visions, I believe the more that we're going to be able to see good things come out of this. So I'm going to go ahead and end this on a high note here. Once again, Marcel, where can they find you and your work at?
Just on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, there's I have a playlist with some songs I played on, and on Instagram there are also a few works.
Awesome. So what's your Instagram? Is it Instagram at Marcel Walden?
At Marcel the
underscore.
I don't know what's this. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And Walden.
Awesome. So yeah, guys, go and check his work out. Chris, where can they find you and your work at?
Oh man. I'm on SoundCloud. I think you look just up Chris Knowles. You'll find me on SoundCloud. Don't like hold me account for everything you hear on SoundCloud, okay. But because I've got some older stuff out there that's poorly produced. I actually am going to be starting a podcast. I'm going to turn my YouTube channel it's just right now, it's just a personal YouTube channel. I'm going to turn that into my podcast and video cast channell.
Awesome.
And I've got to do some things first. And then I'm out on BandLab. I know I think we had a brief discussion about BandLab. It is, there's a lot of need for a lot of people to get out there and interact with some of these people on BandLab and try and steer them in the right direction, because there's a lot of people out there steering them in the wrong direction.
Right.
I try to, even though sometimes I'll try to collaborate with people, they cross the line with some of the language in their stuff. And I'm like, hey, what would you guys think about me cutting some of the language and kind of emphasizing some of the other parts of the message, try to just steer them in the right direction. But anyway, I'm out on BandLab. I think I don't know the handles and stuff. I haven't even thought about that. I wasn't expecting that question. You should have warned me, mean man. But yeah, I'll shoot you you can use my email to reach out to me for now. I don't mind my personal email being known to anybody that wants to collaborate or has questions, or, if you want to, I haven't set up a mailing list or anything like that yet, but I'll be on more future things. I'll be on the line just watching more Robert stuff. So you can always reach out to me when we're on YouTube, and I can keep you guys posted that way too. So,
and we do have a Facebook collab group that anyone is more than welcome to join too. And you can find every one of these individuals on that group as well. So Brian, where can they find you and your work?
I'm on Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, BandLab, you name it. I'll send you all the links later.
Awesome.
You can drop it in here if you want to.
I'll do that too.
Awesome. Marcel, if you don't mind doing that as well, and then I'll just include all of these in the description of this video, sort of post video, and then you guys can all go and check out their personal work. So for now, though, I'm going to go ahead and sign off with these guys. Once again, guys, thank you so much, not just for your help with the project, but for giving up your time today and for hopping on and just geeking out about the project and helping to share some of your backstory and stuff like that. So until next time, guys, we will definitely be seeing more of these individuals on the channel. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sign off with these guys, and then I'll sort of do my end remarks on the actual channel here. So you guys can be sure to hang out there as well if you still have time. Yeah. But going to go ahead and sign off on the old Skype. So see you guys later. Nice having you.
Buddy. See you guys.
See you.
All right. Well, that was definitely rather awesome. I love the fact that they took time out of their day to come on here and hang out. I have to say that I was not expecting just the amount of feedback that I did get from this particular track in the chat. You guys are awesome. But thank you guys so much once again. Marcel, Jason, I'm sorry he was not able to make it here with us to give his rundown. Marcel, Jason, Chris, and Brian, you guys are awesome. I will definitely be looking you up in the future for more collaborations. And everybody that has tuned in here, go and check out the Facebook page. We got facebook.com/Home Studio Simplified. There's all kinds of upcoming events there, previous posts, things you can find there. Also, we do have a private group. It's not a private, it's a public group called the HSS Collab that you can find there. Or you can join us on the Flock account, and you can just hop on there and kind of find out what that's all about. That will allow you to kind of see the back page of what we were looking at. Also, be sure to, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, be sure to check out the Patreon page. I'm constantly plugging this Patreon page with good reason, because whenever we can reach that goal that I'm wanting to reach, it's not going to be about supplying me with an income. It's going to be about supplying the Patreon members with giveaways. And the cool part about it is it's, if I can reach that threshold, which I'm trying to shoot for at least a $500 a month reoccurring monthly income from Patreon, from that, I will take that $500, and then amongst the Patreon members, I will say, okay, what piece of gear would you like to see reviewed? I'll order that piece of gear. I'll do a full review on that piece of gear, and then I'll give it back to the Patreon members. So literally your $5 a month could turn into a free piece of gear one of those months. So your $5 chip in could turn into a $400 piece of equipment. So there's a lot of cool stuff there that you're going to get extra perks as well for being a Patreon member. I don't have time to go into all of that, as I don't want to sound like a salesman. But there's something that we haven't done on the channel as of yet today, because we've had so much stuff going on that is sort of like a staple, a mainstay of this channel that I want to make sure that we get to. And you all know where I'm going with this, right? You're right. The wheel of awesomeness. We haven't spun the wheel in a long time. And I want to do that because really the last couple of streams that we've done, the last one I said I was going to get to it, I never did. And then I felt bad after I got off. I was like, oh no, I was going to spin the wheel and I forgot to. How can I forget to spin the wheel? That's like an integral part of this whole program. So I'm pulling up the spinner Maduji right now. So that might take a minute, but let's go ahead and hop on over to the Wheel of Awesomeness page. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the Wheel of Awesomeness. Mike is asking about the lava lamp. So I do not have the lava lamp ordered as of yet. I'm still waiting for all of the various, there's all kinds of individuals who are commenting on what collar I should get. For those of you who don't know what I'm even talking about, I recently have had several individuals asking me why I don't have a lava lamp here in the studio. And we all know like lava lamps are an integral part of every studio, and why mine doesn't have one. I just don't have one. Randall saying plaid, which ironically enough, I did find one that had pretty much every color in the rainbow in it, but it just didn't look quite studio enough for me. So I'm definitely going to be trying to go and figure out which collar that I need to get. The tartan collar, that would be nice. I actually almost wore my tartan hat today, but I didn't. But anyway, let's go ahead and spin this wheel and see where it lands. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are spinning. For some reason, every time I go to the Wheel of Awesomeness, I have to break into the radio voice. This is the wheel. All right, we're talking about a favorite. Okay, this is going to be easy. So out of all the things that we've talked about today, what has been your favorite point that was brought up? I know that's kind of an ethereal point there, but it's a point nonetheless. What's been the favorite point that was brought out during this entire conversation? Was it the collaboration aspect of it? Was it something that someone had said? If you can nail it down to just one point, sort of an aha moment maybe that you walked away with, what would that be? Awesome. Mark says so many. It's overload, isn't it, Mark? That I have a tartan hat. It's actually not. It's actually a tartan. What do they call it? It's not actually a hat. It's like a labre. And I can't remember what exactly they call that. But it's definitely Scottish, to say the least. Maybe the at the next subscriber milestone, I'll break out that hat. Which is actually, it's approaching around the corner. 6,000 subscribers is approaching fast. We're now up to like 6,470, which I didn't even plan on ever reaching 5,000. So thank you all so much for that. Let's see. Mark George, that you have a tartan hat. Loleo says digital versus analog. That was a really cool conversation that we had about that. That Brian Wilson was almost killed. Hearing the guys talk about their thinking process and hearing the song and what they wanted to do. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I have to say that my favorite takeaway point was just everybody coming together and making this happen. It is not easy, especially during the day and age in which we live, for everybody to get together on the same page and for everyone to agree on something together. And just the project itself, I cannot say enough how seamlessly it just took a light of its own. And then today with the show, everybody being able to hop on, even though Marcel, he's in Germany. I believe he's in Germany. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then the rest of us, we're in the States, but we're in different areas. And so our time zones are all wonky. But for everyone to be able to come on here together and just, this is the whole reason why I, years ago, wanted to start this channel. Austria, thank you. This is the whole reason why I wanted to start this channel to begin with, was to get this community feedback and everything together. So thank you all so much for hopping on. And Randall's from Arkansas. Nice. Tim's singing Come Together right now. So some things you can look forward to in the near future on the channel. We are going to be having here soon. I'm going to be doing some more live sessions on mixing. I'm going to be doing some more live sessions on, actually, I was going to pass this by Mark while he's here in the chat. Would be a great time to do it. So Mark, I was going to ask you if it would be okay with you because I have not touched the song as of yet. Shame on me. I've just been very busy. And there's a lot of stuff going on. But I was actually going to ask you, Mark, if it would be okay with you if I would just go ahead and do the free mix and master that you earned through winning the HSS song contest if I just did that live. That would be kind of cool. Just pull up the tracks and show you guys just right out of the gate what I would do with this and just do that live. That would be fun, honestly, too. So Mark says, sure. Awesome. Tim is only about 40 miles away from me. At one point in time, we're going to have a meetup, Tim. Sit around and talk shop. That would be cool. I'm actually talking to Tim because I know that you know the individual. The guitar shop, Guitar City in Columbus. I'm talking to him right now. We're conversing back and forth about doing a master class for local musicians and stuff about how to record music at home. So he said that would be awesome. And I love his shop. That would give me an opportunity to help the community, the local community, train them on how to get better sounding music in their home studios. So that might be something we could actually meet up on. I'll let you know the details on that as we come, and I'm going to try to do that live too so that you guys can actually get to see his shop. And So yeah, we're going to be doing that here in the near future. Also, I've already made mention of this, but we do have an Ultimate by Cakewalk by BandLab tutorial course that's coming out soon. Just to show you real quickly how far along that is, I'll kind of show you guys, because you're all here today, sort of the back half of where we're at on that right now. So this is the folder that I'm currently plopping everything into. So right now we have an introduction. We got module 1, which is the downloading and installation of Cakewalk. Module 2 is about troubleshooting and installation and updates. Now, a lot of these can already be found on the channel. However, these are going to be a little bit more in-depth and more up to speed as far as the most recent updates. Module 3 is about the overview of the program. This is an in-depth, I mean, it goes crazy in-depth about everything that's in there. Customization options. Module 5 is about custom FX chains, how to create those. Module 6 is about the top menu navigation. This covers everything about the top menu that's found within Cakewalk by BandLab that a lot of time goes overlooked. Module 7 is already up and running, and it's about custom plugin menu layouts. And then within every one of these modules, you're going to get a PDF download to help accentuate whatever it is that you're going to be doing. Here's all of the multi-tracks that you're going to get. These have all been named accordingly. They're all perfectly in order so that whatever DAW that you're working in, whether it's Logic, Cubase, FL Studio, whatever it might be, they'll seamlessly integrate into that. And you can follow along with me in your DAW. And the way that this is going to happen too is I'm going to be doing this in such a way to where regardless of what DAW you are in, you'll be able to get to the same amount of the same end goal either way. So you don't have to be a Cakewalk user to purchase the program. Although if you are a Cakewalk user, that's where it's going to be most needful. And then also you're going to get a copy of the Pro Startup template that I use that has all kinds of really cool tips and tricks on the sidelines within your interface so that as you pull up projects, you'll be able to have EQ tips and tricks at your fingertips. And then you're also going to have the Cakewalk bundle file of the project that we're working on. So if you work in Cakewalk and you're able to get a hold of this program, then you can actually take that bundle file, open it up within your project, and everything is going to open up seamlessly. It's already going to be labeled, track counted. Everything's going to be, you won't even have to worry about anything. It's going to be like one click and you're there. You're going to see exactly what I see on my screen. So that's just up to module 7 right now, and we're already at 2 hours worth of content. So within this infrastructure, this frame that it's going to be, we're looking at probably a 4 to 6 hour course. So it is going to be huge. And I definitely would recommend that you go and check that out. As soon as it's released, I will let you guys know. Of course, Warren's going to be covering that on his channel too, to let you know. And I'm definitely excited about some of the things that you guys are doing too. So anything that you guys are doing, please let me know. I want to point other individuals towards you as well. If you're doing collaboration projects with other people within the group or on the Facebook collab page, let me know. I want to help point to that work so that we can kind of see this flourish and grow and keep growing. Along those same lines, make sure that you share this channel with everyone that you can. Make sure that you share those Facebook groups. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel if you're not already, and click that bell icon, and make sure that you like this video. So until next time, guys, remember that this channel exists to simplify the complexities of the home studio and to help you make professional sounding music in a less than professional space. Remember, we can dream alone, we can create alone, but together we can achieve so much more. God bless each and every one of you. I love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for hopping on again.